What's up, y'all? It's T-Tar, and one of the final mysteries of Scarlet and Violet has finally been solved. What really happened with Heath when he was making a Scarlet and Violet book? Now, essentially, y'all, we can go through the whole Scarlet and Violet book again, and knowing what we know now from the Indigo Disk, the whole book speaks to us in a different light. So I'm gonna show it to y'all. So this is the very start, right? We seen this part in game. This is the first glimpse you get of Area Zero. A photograph from the survey team's point of ingress to the crater. Clouds obscured the crater's distant depths where the treasure of legend is said to lie. Now onward and downward. People have always thought there was something in Area Zero, and that's why the Pokemon King destroyed his whole empire trying to send people down there. The crater's distant depths where the treasure of legend is said to lie. Having beaten the game, we know it really was down there. On the next page, it shows them traversing through Area Zero, and I noticed that if you look carefully, there's flashes of light all throughout this image, and at first it looks like they've made it to the cave part of Area Zero, and that it's the crystals, but it's not. Every flash is coming from one of the lamps that they're holding or Charmander's tail. So the only cave this could be is the cave that leads to where Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon are. So this is them on their way to discover that. So it's a pretty cool detail. And he writes, "It is inhospitable to human life, and as such, I suspect something altogether unknown to humankind sleeps in its depths." Again, this sucker is not wrong. And it's also cool to look back at this book and realize this whole mystery of what the treasure in Area Zero was an actual treasure hunt ongoing for thousands of years. The old Pokemon King, Heath, these guys all got to experience the mystery of Terrapagus, and while they never found Terrapagus, at least after beating the Indigo Disk, we know the treasure everyone was looking for was not a hoax. It really was somewhere down there. Next page shows the grass pattern. Oddly enough, y'all, we've beaten the DLC, and this pattern is never addressed. Note the strange symbols inscribed on the ground here. Were they left by explorers in the time of the Paldean Empire, or could they be older still? Regardless, they seem as if they must hold some meaning. The next page pauses his exploration and shows some of the stuff he documented. This is the landscape of Area Zero, and he writes, "Ledges form a spiral down the inner walls of Area Zero, offering a path of descent. There's naturally a way to go to the bottom of Area Zero, so someone either made the path while exploring, or this is proof, even though the game never revealed it to us, that people used to live in Area Zero." Next page, he sketches some Pokemon he sees down there. But now and then, we heard unfamiliar cries from the lower strata. Monsters of Area Zero. As we descended further into Area Zero, we began to catch glimpses of mysterious Pokemon, though we wondered if these compact, cruel beasts were indeed Pokemon at all. Alright, it's time to talk about the official approach to this. Up until we played the Indigo Disk, we didn't know what was up with how Heath saw these Pokemon here. Now we have an answer. It's just my theory, but it goes with the official ruling of how things went, which is that the reason Heath saw these Pokemon here is because Sod and Toro pulled them out, and it's a time loop. It's not something like they naturally always existed in Area Zero. This is the first part of solving Heath's time loop and this big mystery. It's that the moment they showed us in game that we gave the white book to Sod and Toro, which is creating this constant paradox of no origin to how the time machine was really built. I made a video on that. This has to be the same situation. In some weird turn of events, another time loop has begun here. If Sod and Toro did not pull out the Pokemon in modern days, Heath was not supposed to see these Pokemon back then. It's not supposed to make sense, but that's what the game is trying to tell us. We wondered if these compact, cruel beasts were indeed Pokemon at all. One of our teams suffered a brutal blow from such a beast and was mortally wounded, forcing us to retreat for a time. So I'm gonna revisit this whole paradox of how they saw the Pokemon here later. But another thing to note is, as of the completion of the Indigo Disk, we now know that every paradox Pokemon is real. So this really is a Donphan from a future, and he just saw it in Area Zero / a Donphan from the past. Next page, he shows a photo of the Donphan, which proves if we want to take it being staged out of the picture, because while it does show a tropical area that we never see ourselves in Area Zero, so it makes it think that he staged it. Since we know the paradox Pokemon are real, Heath clearly didn't make this up. It's cool, y'all, to go through these photos knowing everything we do now. I notice a passing resemblance to the Pokemon known as Donphan, yet differences such as its texture and the way it moves suggest it is biologically separate. to say nothing of its treads of iron. Yo, this especially is freaky. If you've ever seen iron treads move, it spins around. But yeah, yo, now that we know what we know, this was a real photograph. In both games, Heath sees either one iron treads or one great tusk, and you can only ever find one iron treads or one great tusk in the desert Titan area of Scarlet and Violet. So the implication there seems to be that we are meeting the same Donphan, the one escapee that Heath witnessed back in the day. Alright, next page. This is when things start to get really weird. Whenever we saw this photo before the Indigo Disk, we just thought he was seeing the bottom cave area of Area 0. And since he was just there at an earlier time, he's seeing a bunch of crystals at once, as opposed to us who just saw them at random places. But he is seeing a place we could not access until the Indigo Disk. This is how we initially read it. Countless days into our descent, we reached at last the very depths of the Great Crater. There we found a cave with formations of gemstone, shining blindingly bright as far as we could see. Perhaps that strange light itself is the guardian said to watch over the treasure deep within the crater. So it's only after we play the Indigo Disk and Briar explains what Heath wrote here that we understand. When he says we reached at last the very depths, he's talking about Area 0's underdepths. This is the first mystery. Somehow, Heath, when he was going down to Area 0, instead of reaching the bottom that we do in the main games, somehow he magically ended up 3,300 feet even below to the underdepths, which is impossible. But this is what we see in the underdepths. It's a more indigo colored version of Terupagus's crystals, and it's a whole clump like that. Perhaps that strange light itself is the guardian said to watch over treasure. This actually has truth to it, because this clump is Terupagus's crystals, but it's also, see how it says it's a strange light? It's connected to the stellar type. We see a few of these in the underdepths, and it's like there are these Pokemon that have taken on the stellar type that are like guarding Terupagus. You gotta beat up the Glamora, Noivern, and Knucklestack who have the stellar Terra type to break these down and get further in. So they really are guardians watching over the Terupagus deep within the crater, the treasure. So I can show some gameplay right here. You see this part of the game? That's as far as it seems like they could make it, because they didn't know there was a way to get past that. And that's really the end of their expedition. Then somehow they made it back out of the underdepths magically, and then they climbed out of Area 0. That's a mystery. Now, a couple things here. While he was in the underdepths, somehow he didn't encounter the stellar Pokemon, which is weird. I guess it makes sense they kept their distance, which we know they didn't go near, or else they would have broken these probably. So that's the end of their expedition. And then once Heath comes back to the surface, he starts to write a few more pages like this. An imagined Pokemon. No one knows why Heath got this drawing made, or the Johto Beast one. I can kind of give an explanation, but that goes into a whole different topic, because it's about something you witness in the underdepths. We'll get to that at a different time. And then while he's on the surface, he decides to write about a certain memory he had down in Area 0, which is the next page. A phantom memory. During our exploration of Area 0's depths, see that? This ain't the bottom around where Zero Lab is. This is the actual underdepths, freaking 3,000 feet under. During our exploration there, Heath strayed from the team and was later found unconscious. When awoken, I could only recall speaking with someone in an unfamiliar place, as if in a dream. I was found holding the page shown here. The handwriting is my own, but I have no memory of writing this. So, y'all, as of beating the Indigo Disk, now we know what Heath was doing here. Now we know exactly what he was talking about. And it's been the biggest mystery for so long. Heath time traveled. This whole experience here was him time traveling. We got to witness this exact incident happen in a different way at the Crystal Pool, when Terupagus pulled Sodontura from 10 years in the past. The same thing happened to Heath here. He was alone. So they're at Area 0's underdepths. Remember this picture where they couldn't get further past this? Instead of going back home, they just camped out in the underdepths. And Heath decided, you know, I'm gonna go visit those crystals again. So as he's going to visit the crystals, somehow, we don't know if Terupagus is involved or just the effects of the crystals, it time displaced Heath. and he got sent to a different time period. Look at what he writes. When awoken, I could only recall speaking with someone in an unfamiliar place as if in a dream. This is the exact same haziness you can see in Sada and Toro when they're pulled to the crystal pool, except they're more of a scientist, so they have actual theories as to what's happening. They say, maybe I've entered a different timeline. Heath's only explanation is, I think I was dreaming, but he was in an unfamiliar place speaking to someone. So what happened is he got sent to a different time period, spoke to someone the same way we spoke to Sada and Toro, exchanged information, the same. There's a secret cutscene that we'll just never get to see of Heath talking to someone in some time period. And at the end of that exchange, the same way we gave Sada and Toro the white book, somehow he got his hands on this page from someone. But the page is in his own handwriting. So there's a couple things you can think, right? Maybe after we meet the professor and give him the white book, shortly after, he actually meets Heath. And this is what happens, right? Heath gets pulled to Area Zero's underdepths one of the times, and Heath is just talking to Sada/Turo. And it's from them that they get this paper. And the reason you would think this is because this looks like equations about their time machine. This is like the time machine room, literally. And then it's equations, right? You got math equations down here. You got a crown. This looks like Sada and Turo's notes when they're trying to break space-time to pull Pokemon from different timelines into their own. But the issue with saying these are Sada and Turo's notes that Heath was accidentally holding when he got sent back to his time is that these are in Heath's handwriting. So the other thing you could think is, okay, maybe Heath was just so interested in talking to Sada and Turo that he started writing everything down. But what's weird with that is Heath is he's a historian. More likely than not, he was not going to sit there writing these equations. So this is when the explanation comes as the exact same explanation that I gave you for the white book incident, which is that we're in an infinite time loop. So what Sada and Turo gave Heath was a page from the book he has yet to publish, where he put this page of equations that have his handwriting. And so Heath publishes that exact page saying, I found this page that has my handwriting, but I don't remember writing it. The origin to that page, there is no origin. The infinite loop has happened so long, no one knows how it even started with Heath having this page in his own handwriting. And we're never gonna know. It's the bootstrap paradox. Either way, it's an infinite loop. And we now have proof. Now we understand this page that when he was found unconscious, is because he got zapped out of his time and was able to speak to someone. But yeah, this whole phantom memory crap, he only writes about it after he's come up to the surface and he's thinking about what happened down in Area Zero. But there's one more thing he writes about while thinking back to what happened in Area Zero, and it's this page. A disc Pokemon? Now look carefully at the writing here. While separated from the research team in the crater's depths. 2 points. In the crater's depths means they're in the underdepths. And 2, while separated from the research team. This is around the same time that he's pulled out of his time. And this is when he's talking about this creature. While separated from them in the depths, I found a strange entity. Whether it was a Pokemon or even alive at all, I know not. It bore a shell with layers of overlapping hexagons and gleamed brighter still than gemstone. Viewed as a whole, it resembled a mysterious, brilliant disc. He witnessed Terupagus's stellar form. And even though we can't see the rest of the pages in this book, we have more writing on how he thought about this, which is in Terupagus's Pokédex entry, where he describes his vision here as this creature floating through space on what looked like a planet. So what Heath tried to show us in this photo is this vision of Terupagus, where it looks like he's just floating through space. That's why it shows stars and it shows Jupiter and crap. So before the Indigo Disk came out, I had this theory that what Heath wrote about here is him being pulled out of his time to witness what Kieran does in Area Zero when we have to fight Stellar Terupagus. And so he's writing literally what Kieran just did. But you know, we've played the Indigo Disk and we didn't see Heath anywhere unless he was hiding behind a rock. So maybe the time period Heath got pulled to is some ancient past. An ancient past where, because remember, Terupagus used to live on Paldea's surface, only after it got stuck in the Earth's crust and never came back out. So maybe he got sent to the ancient past where Tropigus is on the surface. And so maybe that means the people he was speaking with are actually ancient people. But yeah, since that's jumping through too many strides of unknown territory, like we don't even know what's up with these ancient people, it would seem the easiest answer to what happened in this book is that he didn't meet ancient people. He actually really did meet Sada and Turo. But that does leave one last mystery, which is, okay, if he didn't go to the ancient past to see this image, and he wasn't in the modern day when Kieran was doing this to see this image, how did he ever witness Stellar Tropigus? We'll never know the answer. And then we end this off, that's the last page of the book. So we end this video off talking about maybe the real time loop that happened, which is something I talked about in a previous video. And it's the idea that, especially since we don't know the origin to this photo here, which makes it sound like an incident happened that's no longer recorded in time, that Heath actually got the Scarlet and Violet book, or a lot of its pages, from a time loop. And he published this book about a different Heath's experience, because time has changed and he's not experiencing the same thing as the original author that made all those pages. The most interesting thing to come out of this is that this really is a giant paradox, and the game has left just enough holes for us to figure out what's going on, but not enough. We can't figure it out well enough, where that's what y'all come in. Let me know some thoughts you have, who else Heath could have met, how he could have ended up with the original manuscripts, whether the Scarlet and Violet books are paradoxes that he didn't actually write. Y'all let me know your thoughts. Shank that like button, but one thing is certain for sure, Heath was a time traveler. He really was. So that's made me very happy. But it looks like, as of now, there's no more information Game Freak's gonna tell us about this whole Heath mystery, unless whatever happens in Pokemon 2024, Unova Remakes, Johto, whatever, somehow extends the story of Scarlet and Violet's mystery in terms of Tropigus, Paradox Pokemon, Heath's book. Unless that happens, this is the end, man. But it's been a fun ride looking at this book. So I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.